Hi, this is me from the future. I started this video with a different intention in mind. This was just showing how to use readily available yarns to make a pattern work. But as I progressed in the pattern, other things became apparent, so it's become more of how I made this pattern as well as using local yarns. Just to let you know, because I recorded the intro before I started the pattern. So be aware, that's why things don't quite match up. Anyway, let's start. Hi, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the craft room again. For today's video, I was wondering if any of you are like me and you have a collection of yarn magazines or crochet magazines. This is my collection, as you can see on the screen at the moment. You don't think it's too much, do you? Let me know down below if you've got more or less, or maybe I should thin them out a bit. But anyway, when I get crochet magazines, there's usually ads from yarn companies showing some of their free patterns. And one in particular has been annoying me, reminding me, is that the word? I'm not sure. But I really, really like it. And it's this one up here. This is by Cascade Yarns, right? It was in magazines a while ago. And I kept seeing it in the magazine, like on the back of the front cover or whatever. And I really, really like it and I wanted to make it. But the problem is I can't get Cascade Yarns in Australia, at least nowhere that I know of. And sending overseas for them is going to cost so much for just something I just want to make because I like the pattern. So what I thought I'd use was this new yarn that has come out from Anko. Now, Anko is the house brand of Kmart in Australia, and this is a cake yarn in the color artichoke. Yes, it's artichoke, not Jerusalem artichokes, the other one. And I really like the progression of colors in the yarn, so I got myself a bunch of these. There's a few more in the corner here, and I worked out the math. Now on this, is it this side? Yeah, this side is the requirements on the pattern. On this side is me working out how many balls I'd need to match it. Now you might notice something that's a bit weird, is that there is more meterage in 100 grams on the Cascade yarn, but they use a bigger hook to make the pattern. Whereas my yarn, I have less meterage, but I use a smaller hook. So there might be a bit of leeway in the amount of balls I need, but I'm going to start with what I have and keep an eye out for a couple more balls when I'm going to Kmart next or whatever. The next problem is this pattern works from the center of the back out, which is fine if it's all in one color, but because my yarn changes color, I don't want stripes, or I don't want lots of stripes. I don't think that'll look good. So what I'm planning to do is to use the color placement technique, where I'm going to rewind my yarn and join the colors together, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I'm also going to do Russian doctor joins, which is a video on this channel to show how to do it, so that they're nice and smooth and there's no big bumps and lumps. So I'm going to show you how I do that in a minute. I'm also going to do myself a gauge, which is mentioned in the pattern. I will also put a link to this pattern in the description box if you'd like to make it yourself. Otherwise, you can just look this up and it'll come up. It is a free pattern on their website, so there'll be no problems with the copyright. And I'm going to do a gauge and work out what hook size between the two hook sizes will work for my yarn. I may have to go up, may have to go down. We'll have to work it out once we do the gauge. So from now, we're going to wind this yarn into the usable cakes. It might be one, it might be two. It depends on how much can fit on my winder. We'll go to that now. All right, so I think I'm all set up to do this yarn winding color placement stuff. All you'll need to do it is you will need a yarn winder, you will need a pair of scissors, and you will need your yarn. And I found all the centers of these and they're all ready to go, arranged in a convenient way for me. I am right-handed. If you're left-handed, you may have to arrange it differently. You just have a look at it. So first of all, I do want to talk about the yarn winder. Now, this one is the one I use. you need to make sure it has all the bits you see here, but it also has to have the table clamp. If you do not clamp it to the table, it will be the biggest pain in the arse you've ever come across. You need it fixed, not moving, okay? You try and hold this in your hand and wind yarn, it's going to be a catastrophe. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get the end of your yarn and you need to put it through this yarn guide. So you just wind it around so it runs in the center freely. This is not a tension guide. This is just a yarn guide. And then you come up here and you put it into the notch. This is going to make a center pull skein of yarn. Your hand will be your tension. And then you want to wind always in the same direction your yarn. Not terribly fast, but you do need to keep the tension on running between your fingers. Now, I don't use wool a lot because I react to it, but if you're running wool through your hand, you may need to wear a pair of gloves because some wool is quite abrasive to skin. That being said, this is all you need to do. Now, I'm going to come back once I've wound all the center of this ball of yarn and undone that knot, and I will show you how to connect the next one up. As you can see, I have wound all of the first lot of purple. What you are looking for, hopefully you can see on the side that it's making a pattern. That means that the angle of the yarn winder is working correctly and the tension is correctly. If you don't get this pattern, you're not holding the tension correctly and it will start winding at the top and the bottom and cause all sorts of problems. This is what you got to look for, this patterning, and it should be all the way around the ball. This one here is from the center. Don't worry about that one strand, but the rest of it is fine. So that being said, we also need to look, this is my plate on the yarn winder. I cannot make my ball bigger than the outside edge of this plate because it will hook on everything. So it looks like I may have to do the colors individually, which is fine because also if I need more yarn, I can add it in more easily. So I have got to where it changes color to the orangey color. So I'm going to cut right on where it changes color and get that out the way. And then I'm going to do the first part of the Russian doctor join. So I wind it around my little finger for tension. And you got to have a decent amount of tails. And we want to go over once and twice, and then with the other side do it again, once and twice. Pull it tight, and that is a surgeon's knot. This is why it's called the Russian doctor join. That is a surgeon's knot, which is basically a reef knot with an extra twist, and then these ends get woven in here, so there's no actual ends for you to weave in afterwards. Makes time a lot easier. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that like it is on the winding, and I'm going to sort it out when I get to it. So we come back to our yarn winder and then we just keep going. Now that is the knot going in, and then off we go. Now make sure you don't have a maniac on the wheel going too fast because you'll have all sorts of problems. And I'll be back once I have finished doing this and show you what we ended up with. And as you can see, here is all the yarn reeled up. I ended up with 8 balls, but if you can see on this one, that one, and these two, I have kept the joinings the same so I can get the sequence correct. I also wrote down the sequence that they appear in the ball, just in case these get all muddled up. I know which one I'm looking for. Another bonus of doing it this way is I have one of each colour on the outside of a ball, so if I get those other balls I might be missing, I can reel them onto here still. Other thing I did is I save my wrappers from cake yarns so that I can put them around the yarns that I wind myself just to keep them neat and tidy. I can also write on them the sequence I need to follow. So that being done, I then used the pattern that was actually on the wrapper and I made this bag. This is the same yarn, different colorway. This one's called the biscuit colorway. This is the pattern that was on the wrapper. So if you're actually thinking of making the Anko bag pattern. It is correct, but just remember it's UK terms, not US terms. Just remember that. It does work, as you can see. 1 ball of yarn. This was to see how the yarn worked using the hook that they recommend, which is the 5.5. It does create quite a dense fabric, but it feels really nice. Feels good for a bag anyway. So if you're using this for clothing, I would probably, with my tension, I would probably go to a higher number. And that also told me how that the colour changes go. They are an abrupt change. So keep that in mind. Next thing we had to do is we had to work out which hook size we're going for. So I looked in the pattern for the gauge that they give you, which is written on the second page. It's up here. I'm not going to make you read it out. But it is done in a stitch design. And I had to look through the pattern to find out where that design is. Because this is clothing, parts of clothing are thicker than others. So like a collar is a thicker fabric than the body of what you're making. And the stitch pattern that they use the gauge pattern in is on the cuffs. So it's to make a cuff fabric, which is slightly thicker than the rest of the body. So I've done these two. This one here has been done in the 5.5 hook. And this one here is done in a 6. 6 is what the pattern recommended. 5.5 is what my yarn recommended. And the way you use your gauge is, in the pattern it said 12 stitches for 10 rows, which is what I've done, should give you a 4-inch square. So I just got a quilting ruler and then this side of the masking tape, so above that and that way. This here is a 4-inch square. But it also says blocked. So I'm not going to block my gauges. You can if you want to, but I don't see the point. What my thing is, if you're blocking acrylic yarn, it is going to stretch slightly, but not a hell of a lot. So whichever one of these is closest unblocked to the 4-inch square is the one I'm going to use. So I reckon it was going to be this one myself. They are very similar. So there's a good margin all the way around for that one. This one, it's less of a margin. So that's actually the smaller hook, which makes sense. So most likely this one's a bit too small, I think. Yeah, I think I'll go with the 5.5, which is closer to the gauge, which in turn will make the piece, for the finished piece, closer to the size they indicate. I don't know how big the person in the pictures is wearing it, and they don't give me a size for the overall piece. So this is the best I can do to make sure it's not too oversized. But being a cocoon cardigan is not really going to make an exact difference. But that is how you test whether your gauge fits what the pattern wants you to do. So all that done, I know what hook I'm using, not that one. I know my sequence of yarns that I'm going to use, so I'm going to go this way and then that way, colour-wise. We know how the yarn's going to react, so now I'm going to start making it. And what I'll do from now on is I will take regular pictures, maybe every either 5 or 10, I'm not sure. I'll write on the first one how many rows it's going to be. I've got a feeling it might be 10, otherwise we can't be here for a while. So it's a square that you then put triangles on to make a bigger square, but twisted, and then you join it up and then it's finished. So I will do the square out every, say, 10 rows, and then I'll do one of the corners so you can see what the corners look like, and then I'll be back with the finished product and I can show you how I went. All right, so I wasn't planning on coming in here and doing this, but I've had some problems and I thought other people might be as well. So this is the pattern I'm making, as I said in the beginning. And first of all, this skill level is needed not because of the difficulty of the pattern, but because of some of the maybe errors I have found in it. This is why I'm doing this now. I have looked online to see on the Cascade site and on this designer's, what I could find of the designers for any errata or pattern corrections, and I couldn't find any. But I also found a lot of other people having trouble. So I thought I would tell you what I found out. So yeah, like first thing I said, you do need to have some knowledge on how crochet patterns are structured to be able to, adapt to working with the problems we come across. So the first thing I came across was you do get quite a bit of explanation of the abbreviations used. And most of them are correct. One thing that I found out was the V-stitch they use is the chain 2 in the middle V-stitch. I'm used to the chain 1, but that's not a bad thing as long as you take notice. The main one that I found was that this treble cluster, when you come to use it, the instruction doesn't work, okay? If you do what it says here, you only have one loop and you'll yarn over on the hook here. You don't have 4. So that is incorrect. Other thing I've found as I've gone through is that in some of the corners, once you get it into a square, which is around here somewhere, they are missing little parts of the corners, and it's mainly chains. When you're making a pattern from a circle into a square, you need to start making your corners so that they are mirrored. So like that's a corner. If you draw a line down the middle, you should have the same thing on this side as you have on that side. And they are missing some of the chains on this side. But if you know that, you can actually work out from this side what's missing and just be aware of it. So that was all right. And then the next thing is when that treble cluster comes up. Now it's in row 27. And as I said, there's no way you can close it from the instructions you have. So I did this row how it's meant to be. But then you go to row 28 and you're supposed to be putting 4, was it 4 or 5? I think it's 5. 5 double crochets into the top of the cluster. So therefore the cluster is not a cluster, it's a popcorn. So once I saw that, I had to figure out how to make it look right. So what I did is you have the 3 trebles that you've done on the previous row. When I did my first double crochet, I reached from the back and pulled them together with the first double crochet, and then the rest of them I did them into the top. It's right here. So my first double crochet, which is this one here, is actually pulling it behind, and then the rest of these are worked into it. So that's how I solved that problem. That is not written. So that was on row 27. And then we get to row 29, and that's when the poo hit the fan. Let me find my instructions that I fixed it up with. Where are we? There we are. Okay. So first thing, you need to do it 13 times. Let me bring it across here. Where it says 12 times, there's my finger, Where it says 12, you actually need to do 13. And then everything past this is very confusing. So what I ended up doing, and I'll try and put it where you can see it. Where's the edge of the page? There it is. So this is me. I've written out what to do. It's mainly the corner that's the problem. And then I've also done this little mud map for you. So this is row 28, and this is what we have done on row 28. This is right at your corner. And then on row 29, please imagine 2 circles in here because I forgot to put the circles in here. This is what I worked out to do. And I had to actually go to the next row, which is row 30, to count everything up to make sure it will work. So they don't tell you how to do this. It's all written here. And I'm actually going to show you. I'll show you a corner that I've already done. So your instructions actually finish, it's either this one or that one, all right? But this part here, not even on the board, not even written at all. So that's what your corner will look like when it's done. And it works out with the next row. The other thing they're not telling you, both of these have to be like all the rest of the cross stitches you've done. They all need a chain 2 in the top, because on the next row you have to put 5 DCs in each one, and if there's no chain 2, there's no room. All right, so just keep that in mind, and I will show you how to do my chalk scratchings. So we've got here, let me just take my stitch marker off and find my loop and pull it all the way back. So we've got to the last single crochet, chain 3, single crochet. I have done the 2 chains, make sure I'm in frame, and then we're going to do our first DC of a cross stitch. So we're skipping these 2 and that, and we're going for this one. So we're doing that as a double crochet. We are chaining 2, and then we're coming back to this one. So that's your single crochet, that's the one we're on, and we are doing the cross stitch, chain 2. Now we're going to jump to here, so we're skipping that, the chain 1, and we're going into that stitch there, chain 2, and then we're coming back to this stitch here, so missing the chain 1 between the 2 lots of double crochets. No chain here, and then we are doing 3 double crochets, 2 and 3, chain 2, 2, and another 3 double crochets, 2 and 3. So now we've got around the corner, so we've done that. So we now have to mirror what's here. So no chain, we are jumping down here, so we're skipping 1, 2 and the chain, doing a double crochet, chain 2, and then back to that one, other side of the chain, and then finishing the double crochet, chain 2, and then you're jumping all the way down to here, all the way down, double crochet, chain 2, and then back to that one, skipping. You're not even doing, let me just straighten that out. So we're skipping that double crochet and we're skipping the chain 2 in there, the single crochet, sorry, chain 2, and then you go back to your repeats for the rest of the row. So that's single crochet, 1, 2, 3, and then back. All right, so that's how you do row 29's corners. And I've also counted up all the cross stitches, and they do match, adding in these, the amount we're supposed to have. So I will be back if I find anything else I've got to fix. And we're all finished. Here it is, all done. It took way longer than I thought, mainly because, as you saw earlier, I had to figure out what the heck they are telling me to do. First thing I want to say, from the 8 balls I had at the beginning, I still have most of this one left. So this was the last colour, is like the tealy colour. I really only used it for the triangles at the end and the cuffs, and I still had that. This is from the original 5 balls. I did get 2 other balls and I haven't even touched those, so I'm not taking them back. We're going to use them, but just so you know, I had less than they said in a thicker yarn and I still had leftovers. I did end up switching to the 6mm. I remember I said at the beginning I did a test in both sizes. Once I got going, I found that I needed the bigger hook to open out the lace work. So I switched to the 6, which is what the pattern said for their yarn. Next thing I have a problem with. In the photos on the pattern, you can see this lovely lady wearing it. And nowhere does it say how big she is. But if you look at it, it looks like it covers her all the way to the wrists and halfway down her leg. It doesn't. at least not on me. And also it says on here, one size fits all, and they give you this measurement, but they're not telling you where that measurement's from. Because once you sew the ends up to make the sleeves, it changes it into a rectangle. So you have really no idea what that applies to. I will put a video at the end of me wearing it. I am 6 foot, okay? So when you see it on me, that'll give you some idea how big it is. So other thing I wanted to say is, after doing all this lovely lace work in the middle, which is here, that's half of it. As I said, it's closed up so you can't really see it. The only edging that you have is single crochets, which to me, it's a bit of a waste. I mean, other people were saying that it's, oh, well, you've done so much detail, maybe they just wanted a plain end. To me, this should have been a ribbing so that it hugs in, and around the opening is the same. It's just single crochets. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. All in all, it's not a terrible pattern. I did try to go to the website to see if there was any errata. I looked up the designer. I couldn't find any way to contact her, but I did find a lot of other people having trouble with it. So that's why I added the other bits into the video. But it's done. And I used Anko yarn. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, the corner bits here, you'll see them on the previous videos when I added them. These corner bits are done in lemon peel stitch, and it is very dense. I actually had to kill block just the corners to get it to lay flat. And if you don't know what kill blocking is, I did do a video on an earlier tutorial on how to do kill blocking, but I had to kill, you can see it's now all drapey. When I did it, it was so dense. There's no way it would have laid flat. It looks the same both sides, so you don't have a wrong side, right side. So just be aware of that. If you're using an acrylic for these corner pieces, you may need to kill block them just to make it work. So that being said, I'm happy I did it. It's off my list. And now I'll show you the little video of us wearing it. So, this is how long the sleeves are. Not really near my wrists, but it is nice and warm, and yeah, I'm happy with it, but a little bit deceptive on size. So if you like this video and you've got any comments or anything, just put them at the bottom, and I will see you on